Hey friends, Chris Maholka here. Today we're going to talk about something that all fly tyers use and a lot of crafters use as well for other projects and kind of take it for granted, and that is tinsel. Now tinsel is basically Mylar, which all Mylar is a poly something or other huge word that you can't really remember or pronounce. It's a plastic, and this particular is gold on one side, silver on the other. It's the basic one that everybody starts with when they're fly tying. Now you probably don't realize, but with a simple tool that I'm going to show you how to make, you can keep a constant supply of this in your fly tying materials for little or no money. Let me show you how this works. We're going to build this simple little slicing device. This is made using some rubber bands, some epoxy, and some razor blades. Very simple. I'm going to show you how to make it so it spaces out correctly for your Mylar strips, and also how to cut the Mylar, and then toward the end not only show you how to cut the Mylar but show you all the sources available right in your home for products to use. The materials for this build are pretty simple. We're going to get some single edge razor blades. You don't want the dual edge ones because you have to deal with one side. You want to be able to handle one side without getting cut up. So some single edge razor blades, some small rubber bands. These rubber bands come from like Hobby Lobby or different craft stores, and they're called Rainbow Loom. Get it the right way here. Rainbow Loom. They come in a huge variety of colors, and they were part of a trend for a while of weaving rubber bands together. We're going to need, to make our little mold for this, we're going to need some aluminum foil, and we're going to need a mixing cup for some epoxy and a stirrer, and then whatever epoxy you prefer. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take and open up our razor blades, take the covering off of them. You want to handle them by the top, not by the sharp edge. And we're going to use, for this project, 10 blades. That's how many come in a pack, so it's a real easy little buy to get just 10 of them. Once we get 10 of them, we're going to put our little green rubber bands, or whatever color rubber bands you have on them. The best way to do this, to not get cut, is just to put it on one side in the little groove there, stretch it underneath, and snap it into place like that. You want to do half. You want to do 5 with rubber bands, 5 without, because when these go together, the base of the blade is going to be like a spacer at the bottom, the rubber band a little higher up. So when you put them together, you alternate them, one with the rubber band, one without, and that gives you the spacing you're going to want for your Mylar to be cut to just that width. It's about a 1/16 of an inch, and that's about what Mylar normally is. Once we have all of our razor blades with rubber bands and not rubber bands, 5 of each, we're going to start and assemble them, and we're just going to take them and go a rubber band and not a rubber band, a rubber band and not a rubber band. Just keep doing this until we've got all 10 blades in the stack, and you don't have to worry about getting them exactly even right now, because we'll do that here in a bit, but you do have to get them all blade up. There we go. Rubber band. There we go. Not a rubber band. My last rubber band, and not rubber band. One keeps wanting to be wrong side up on me there. So now we've got the important part. We've got them all stacked in an order. Now you can just start and kind of working with your fingers, staying away from the top of the blade, and just kind of move them in on the sides, and on the tops we can use something like a stick, like our stirrer, to make sure they're all even. We don't want to do too much with it because we don't want to dull the blades. We just want to get them evened up. Once they're all even like that, just kind of hold them lightly right down the middle. If you hold them at one end or the other, they're all squirt out on you. And do another rubber band around the middle. This is going around where the groove is. That holds them all together, but there's still some wobbliness in that. So what we do is we put another rubber band down on the bottom of the blades. Kind of, there's a little bit of a groove in the metal there at the bottom. And if we get that right around the bottom like that, it holds them all in perfect alignment. Now this is what we're going to put in our epoxy. We're going to use this, and we're going to put it in a little form of epoxy to be our cutter for our Mylar. So the next step would be to take your foil. This is just small sheets of foil, and we're going to make a little form out of this. So we can go kind of like that, and if you have a Sharpie or something, you can make a little box around it so you can see how big your form needs to be. You don't want to be dealing with the razor blades too much. Set the razor blades kind of off to the side a little bit, and then just fold your form up so it's got small sides on it, front and back. You don't have to be, this doesn't have to be a real deep form. This is just so your blades can set in here and it will hold them in place while you coat around them with epoxy. So we're going to go to this side, make another little fold there, and this side. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty, it's just for function, not for beauty. So there's our little mold, a little square right there that those blades will sit perfectly in, and we're going to pour a little epoxy around them to hold them in place to make our cutter. Next we'll mix our epoxy, and if you need any tips on epoxy, go to my video on how to mix epoxy without bubbles. Help you out. This epoxy has been warmed up, and I'm going to just shoot in 50-50 of it because that's the mix it calls for. And I don't need a whole lot, I just need enough to fill that little form with the blades sitting in it. So there's our epoxy. We'll mix this, and again, this is not like rod coating epoxy or anything. This is, you can use the inexpensive stuff or old epoxy you have that's got some color to it. Won't cure up totally crystal clear anymore for things like lures or rods, but if it comes up a little bit off, that's okay on this, doesn't matter. This is just a binder to hold this all together. Make sure we're stirred really well. Give it a minute of stirring. Doesn't matter if there's bubbles in it. They'll work their way out during the curing process on this. Scrape the edges. Okay, our mix is looking good. It's clearing up. The way you can tell epoxy is thoroughly mixed is it doesn't have any cloudy streaks in it. It is all uniform. So we'll set our mixer aside there. We're going to take our form, and we're just going to pour it about half to 2/3 of the way full. Now, I said I heated this epoxy, and that's important, especially if you're in a cold environment. You want epoxy that's warm because it will flow better, and in this case we want it to flow around all of our blades. And we're just going to set this right in there, and we want that epoxy to flow in all around them to hold them in place. If your form's a little deeper, you still have room, you can put a little bit more in. In my case, the form on my backside here is a little shallower, so I've got a little spill coming over the backside. But that is going to be enough to hold those in place for our cutting tool that we're working on. And again, it's not beauty on this one, it's total function. So now we're just going to let that sit and cure up, give the epoxy a couple hours to set, and we'll be ready to use it and show you how to make your own Mylar strips. So we've given this 24 hours to set and cure really good. We're going to just peel away the foam, or the foil. And some of it will tear and stick. That's okay. What we've got now is our little cutter ready to cut some Mylar. And I'm going to show you how we do that. First, we're going to start with something familiar. This is a bag from coffee. Notice that it's gold on one side, silver on the other. What does that remind you of? Here's how we do this. Other than your cutter, all you really need besides your Mylar is something that's got a little bit of a smooth finish to it, and also that the corners of your blade can stick down in, because you want to put your Mylar down. You don't want to take your blade and go like this, because you'll get little wavies and it doesn't work particularly well. What you want to do is take the blades and stick them down into the material, into the cardboard or paper, whatever, and then pull the Mylar through them. And you can see that this gives you all these nice little strips. And you don't waste any material, because you can just keep going back over it, slicing more and more, and coming up with more and more strips that you can use then in your fly tying or your crafts. Now, so if you don't drink coffee, have gold and silver bags like this, you'll find lots of other things. Maybe you want a nice yellow, something like Lay's potato chip yellow. All you have to do is cut out the chunks you want, put your paper or cardboard down, stick your cutter into it, and pull. Now you have a whole bunch of yellow on one side, white on the other strips. If they don't happen to be quite long enough, one of the nice things about Mylar is it stretches. You can take it in your fingers and just pull it through, and as it gets warm and it will stretch, it will get softer, but also it'll get thinner. Now you have even finer materials to use. So the next time you're at the store buying your favorite chips and you need something in a nice blue for a salmon fly or other colors, take your little trimmer like I showed you how to make and make all of the materials you want for your fly tying. Just be aware that this works not only on packaging, it works on Mylar balloons, it works on anything that has that smooth, slick feel to it. You can cut it into strips and use it in your fly tying. Thanks for watching.